My name is Nancy. If you are new, welcome. In today's video, I am going to do a story time of how last year I got really sick in Mexico, and it was before Christmas. So I remember we had arrived there, I believe the 20th with my family. We were there, no, it was like around the 16th or something like that. So we had arrived a couple days before, and we were just preparing for Christmas and everything. And I remember we decided to go to Mexico City December 23rd. So from Guanajuato to Mexico City is about 5 hours, and we had never been to Mexico City because we were gonna go to the Basilica of Our Lady of Guadalupe. And I remember we just decided to go ahead and do it. We're like, well, we're here, might as well, let's just go ahead. So we booked our trip there. And we got there, we went and visited the Basilica. It was beautiful, and they were just getting ready for the Christmas season, like the Christmas mass and everything. So everything was decorated. And I remember we got there and we got like to sightsee, and we bought a couple things. But that same day we had to go back because the 24th was Christmas Eve already. So after that, we headed back to Guanajuato. And I remember we had to still prepare for the tamales, and I knew one of my uncles was arriving that day. So we had to clean up a little bit and just get ready. So we were all exhausted because obviously like when you are on the road, you can't really sleep. And there was quite a few of us. So it's like my family, then my grandpa on my dad's side, and then my aunt also and her family came. So we couldn't really sleep, I guess. So I know when we arrived, we were all really exhausted, but we're like, hey, we gotta get the preparation for the tamales going, because if not, then we're gonna be rushed. So yeah, that day was good. Then December 24th came, which was, we had to do laundry. I know, we had to go do laundry. So we went to a place and we did our laundry, and I had showered right before. But in Mexico in December, it's still like 80 degrees. So I was like, okay, like I'm gonna shower like at noon. So I did. And I didn't wear a sweater because I was like, it's not cold. Like, why would I? But my grandma, I remember, she told me, she's like, hey, mija, like, wear a sweater. Like, you may not think it's like cold, but the climate is different from here and from Nebraska. And I was like, no, I'm gonna be fine. I'm gonna be okay. So we went and did laundry, and then my cousin and I went to eat. We went to eat at KFC, and all of a sudden from there, I felt so sick. Like I felt like I knew something was wrong, but I just didn't pay much attention. And I'm like, it's okay, like it's gonna pass. Like I'll just take like a Tylenol or something for my stuffy nose or whatever. So on the way back, we needed to start getting ready, and I just kept feeling worse and worse and worse. And I was like, Mom, like I'm not feeling well. Like, so she gave me some medicine, and she's like, you're gonna be fine. Like, just go sit in the sun to warm up, because I was just so cold. Like nothing could warm me up. It was just so cold, and it was still sunny. So I did that. I grabbed a chair. I was on my phone outside, and I was like, okay. And that same night we had to go to a midnight mass. So I remember I got ready, and by this time, like I was just so weak, and we had family over. We had my uncles that were there. We had some other people that came, and I remember I just wore some black jeans and like a shirt, and like I was wearing some heels, and I was like, I can't do this. Like I remember like I went over to my grandma's, and I was just so cold. Like I was miserable. Like nothing could keep me warm. I was just feeling really bad. So then I remember we started heading to the church, which is like walking distance. So we just walked there, and my dad had his coat, but he's like, here, carry it, because I'm not cold. And I was like, okay, that's fine. I put on his jacket because I already had my jacket on, and I was just that cold that I had to put it on. It was just a feeling that no one needs to go through. Like it was just, I just was feeling really, really bad. So we were in church and whatever, and we're walking back, and I'm barely like, I had to walk with my cousin, and I was like walking like as slow as possible, and I was freezing. So I was wearing heels, and they were open toed. So I was like, okay, let me go change into my boots. So my brother came and followed me to like the house. I was just that weak that even like taking off my heel and putting on like my boot, I couldn't even pull like the handles to pull it up. I could not even do that. Like my brother had to help me. I'm like, hey Manny, can you help me, because I just can't. Like I'm this weak. And like I know I could have probably stayed in bed. But I'm like, it's Christmas Eve, like we have the posada to do, we have a piñata to break. Like I was just looking forward to it, that I'm like, I'm not missing it. Like yes, I'm feeling really sick, but I'm like, I'm not missing it because it's Christmas Eve. Like we Mexicans celebrate Christmas on Christmas Eve. Like it's just something that we do. So I'm like, I'm not missing this. So I remember I went back and I'm carrying a blanket, and I probably look like a fool walking around with a blanket and like a jacket, but I'm like, I don't really care. I'm still gonna be a part of it, but I'm just gonna be wearing my blanket. So I remember we're sitting down and like everybody's talking, and like my family knows that something's wrong. They're like, you don't look good, like you're very pale. And I was like, I'm fine, like I'm gonna make it through, right? And it just kept getting later and later, and which midnight mass, now that I remember, wasn't at midnight. I think it was like at 9:30, 10 maybe, because I remember I told them, I was like, hey, like once we arrollar el niño, which is like rocking the baby, baby Jesus, each one of us, and like in Mexico we have 5, so each pair, like I did one, but like you rock him. So I told him, I was like, hey, like once that comes up, like go get me, because I went back to my mom's house and I fell asleep. I was like, hey, like I need to go sleep for a little while. So I went back. I couldn't even take off my boots, so I literally laid in bed with my feet off the bed, and I just like threw on a blanket and I like fell asleep. Which I told him, I was like, hey, wake me up when it's time. I was asleep for like an hour and a half to 2, and it seemed like I was just asleep for 5 minutes. And so my cousins came and they woke me up and like, hey, it's time. And I was like, no, like if I have more minutes, which I could have stayed in bed, but I was like, I'm not missing it. So I got up, I went, still looking miserable. So we arrollar el niño, I took pictures, we drank like a coffee, or like we had ponche and we had canela, which are like Mexican warm drinks. So I know my family was doing that, and they're like, how are you feeling? And I'm like, well, I'm not really getting any better. And my aunt was like, hey, so once you go to bed, like once you're done here, go to bed and throw on as many layers so you can sweat it out, right? And I was like, okay, like I don't know if that's gonna help me, but at this point I was like, fine. So after that, I think it was about 3:30, and I'm like, I'm going to bed. I told him, I was like, hey, like Merry Christmas. I cannot keep going. I need to go to bed. So I went, I don't know why my voice cracked right there, but I went back home, and like in my grandma's house, like each houses are kind of like connected, like you don't have to walk far. So I literally walked out of my grandma's house, and like maybe like a couple steps forward, my mom's house was there. So I didn't have to walk too far. And they're like, oh, do you want us to go? And I'm like, no, stay, like I can make it home by myself. So I remember I couldn't even take off my boots, so I fell asleep. I layered, I took my brother's jacket, and I had my hoodie and another like thicker flannel jacket, and then my brother's. I laid down and I was just sweating, but I was like, that's the only way that I could keep warm. I was like, I'm sweating a lot, but I don't want to take off my blankets. Until like my brother came about an hour later and came in to check on me, and he noticed that my boots were still on, so he took them off, because he's like, he asked me, and I'm like, I cannot, like just having to pull it or take, like making the force to take off my boot, I felt like I was gonna pass out. Like I was just so weak, I didn't have any strength. So he took him off. After that, I put my feet in my bed, and little by little, my mom and then my sister and my dad came in after my brother, because my brother was already asleep and I was asleep as well. And they came in to check on me, because in Mexico, my sister and I sleep in the same room. And they're like, how are you feeling? And they touched my forehead and they're like, you have a fever, like you are burning up. Which, mind you, I was heavy clothed because I just had to keep warm. Like that was my main priority. And my mom's like, hey mija, like how are you feeling? And I'm like, to be honest, I feel like crap. I do not feel good. I just want to be somewhere warm. Like I was just kept saying that. And so my mom's like touching my forehead, and she's like, we might have to take you to the doctor. Like we have to like do something. And so then my dad came and he touched my forehead, and he's like, okay, like we need to go. We need to go. And he was like freaking out, and they're like, we need to go get you like a shot or something so you can, or get fluids in you, because I could not keep anything down. Like nothing sounded good. And I remember I got up and I was like, no, like let's not bother my aunt. Like no, I'm gonna be fine. Like I'm gonna be fine. Like no, we don't have to go to the doctor. So I told him, like, you know what, just leave me here. And they threw me another blanket. Mind you, at this point I had already like 3 blankets and like 3 jackets on. And I'm like, no, it's okay. Like, if I still feel really bad, take me in the morning. Like, that's what I said. I was like, take me in the morning. I promise I will come. So a couple hours passed and I just like slept and slept and slept. They woke up, they went and did their thing, and I just slept until about like 10, I want to say 10 in the morning. I woke up and I'm feeling weak. Nothing really, like I felt a bit better, but I was just still really nauseous. I didn't feel like eating. I changed into some sweatpants and like a hoodie, and I went out and my voice was gone. I could not speak. I could not talk like at all. And people thought like, they're like, oh, you're faking it. And I'm like, I seriously cannot talk at all. And I tried, but it was like nothing was coming out. Like nothing at all was coming out. So it was Christmas morning and I remember like my family was like, oh, like, how are you doing? And I just kept worrying. Like they kept asking, which I appreciated it. But I was like, I'm not getting any better. Like I am, but I'm not. So the days went on and the days went on. And I just kept remembering. I was like, why did I have to get sick on Christmas Eve, like on Christmas Day? Like why? Like I had been there a couple more days or could it have been after. But no, it had to be that day. And everything I wanted to do, I was going to record everything. And I just couldn't. I just couldn't physically do it. And so the days went on. And like my temperature had been fine, like I was normal, I didn't have a fever anymore, but my voice would not come back. That was the one thing that I kept drinking warm like coffee. Like I avoided anything cold. Walking one time I went to I think in Mercado with my mom and my aunt. So my aunt and my cousin split up and me and my mom did our own thing. And there was just so many people. And my mom's like, stay close to me because like you don't know where you're going. Like I do, like just stay close. I was like, okay. And mind you, my voice was like, I can barely talk. Like that was me for days after. And we're going out. And I lost my mom. I lost her in the crowd and I'm trying to look for her. And I'm like, Mom. Like that's how I was. But how was she supposed to hear me when we were in the mercado? Like it's loud, like everybody's there, like there's vendors here, vendors there, people buying stuff. And I started to freak out. I'm like, how am I gonna get her to notice? Because then she started looking for me. And I remember like I was one of the taller ones and I'm 5'4". So I was in that area, I was one of the taller ones. So I'm like, okay, like maybe she can see me. So I just stuck my hand out and I was just like waving and see if that would hint at her. And finally I found her. I don't know how, but I found her and she like got mad at me. She's like, why'd you stay away? Like I told you to stay close. And I'm like what are you supposed to do? Like I kept saying excuse me, but like in Mexico, like they don't care. Like they're walking, like they will get through, you know what I mean? Like they're gonna get through. And I've always been the person to like excuse me and like move around. And in Mexico you have to be rough, okay? And she's like, and I'm like, Mom, but I called you. And then she's like, with your voice, like who's gonna hear you, you know? So that was one of the experiences that I had. So just days kept going, and like at this time like New Year's had come around, and I remember like my voice was just not back. And so my uncles were like, here, like have a drink of tequila and see if that will help you. And I'm like, I can't even swallow anything, like let alone am I gonna be drinking alcohol. Like my throat just hurts. Like it was just miserable. Like I was just miserable for the time there. And at the end my grandma's like, see, I told you so. Like you should have put on your sweater when you showered and left that morning. And now I'm like, okay, like yes, Grandma, next time I will listen to you. I will pay attention. I will put on a sweater once I am like going out anywhere, right? So yes, this Christmas 2019 was not fun at all. Like I still enjoyed the time, I still took pictures, but just for the fact that I was just so sick that I felt like I missed out on everything. I missed out on the laughs, the talking, because I was just miserable that I'm like, I need to go to sleep. Like I was just physically exhausted. Like my body felt like if I had been through like a hard workout, but I did it in multiple sets, like over and over and over, that I overworked myself and like my body just couldn't physically like keep up anymore. And that is what I felt like, even though I literally was just like walking from like point A to point B, but it felt like I had just run a marathon. I did legs and arms and everything all in one. That's how I felt. And let's just say that it was not fun. So not until I came home, my siblings left early, so my brother and my sister left early before me and my parents. And even when I was coming back, like New Year's, I wasn't feeling the best, but I was feeling better. My voice had come back, but I still wasn't feeling better. And we left that year New Year's Day. So we celebrated. I didn't go to bed at all. And that day we flew back. And on the way back, from our flight from Leon to Houston, my eardrums bursted. They bursted, and it was to the point where I was almost in tears because it just hurt so bad. So my mom and my dad sat a couple rows in front on the left side, and I was by myself on the right side. So there was a stranger with me, and so I was trying not to make like a face, and I was trying to look at my mom, and I was like, hey mom, like, I was like, mom, I'm like, I don't feel good. And she knew that something was wrong. So mind you, I had just gotten over a cold, my voice barely coming back, and then my eardrums bursted. And I still had to catch another flight from Houston to Omaha, Nebraska, right? So it was a miserable flight. It felt like forever. I had headphones in, but it didn't help me because I was just, it just hurt so bad. So when I got home, the first thing I did on Monday morning was to go to the doctor. Wait, no, it was Saturday. It was a Saturday. I was like, hey, I need to be seen, like, and I had a severe infection because my eardrums had bursted. Like, it was just so severe that they're like, you must have been in pain. I don't remember if it was Saturday or that Monday, but I remember we got home on a Friday. So either way, I had to wait a while, and it was just miserable. Like, it was one thing after the next, and I'm like, what else could go wrong? So I was like, okay, whatever. But good thing I didn't start school till like the following week, so I didn't have to. By then I was okay. But yes, that is my story of when I got really sick and a worst feeling ever. And I told you so about my grandma. So always listen to your grandma because usually they're always right. So yes, that is the end of the video. Please don't forget to subscribe, hit that bell so it notifies you when I upload next. It was just a story time of when I got sick in Mexico last year during Christmas, and I felt like I wasn't gonna make it because I had it rough for like a week and a half. But yes, so I will see you guys next time. Bye.